What's up, y'all? Rich Slayton here with part 2 of my breakdown of Clash Royale League West match between Tribe Gaming and Team Liquid, joined on voice by Boeufmac. Before we get started, if you haven't yet, don't forget to hit subscribe on my channel, ring the bell for notifications so you never miss anything, including some great CRL content, and of course, overall pro stuff, including my Pro v Pro Best of 5 series with various different band type stuff. More on that in the show notes and at the end of the video. But right now, we're going to move into the second part of my series, or of this particular video concept, breaking down Tribe's win over Team Liquid in the group stage of CRL West Spring 2020. Boeufmac on voice, let's go look deep at JupiterKing's win over Egor in the 1v1 set. All right, so that's it for the 2v2. Let's talk about the 1v1 now, which obviously, Boeuf, used to be the place that you would live in, and now you guys have this young star that everyone's pumped about. I mean, what he did at No Tilt League Special Edition was absolutely insane. You know, it's now a thing where I say that JupiterKing is correct, because it seems like over and over again he's doing what he's doing is absolutely nuts. And we're gonna go through his 1v1 games right now, but you're getting a chance to practice with him consistently, to play with him consistently. What are your thoughts on your teammate? What makes him so good?
I think he's like, there's players you need to look out for, like, that have potential to be like very good, and he was like one of those. You got to look for like a few good ladder finishes. It's mainly like the cycle orientated players, and they have to be very young, because like your brain, I know, like, it's the same for a lot of like young players like Egor, Lapo, now Jupiter coming up, and me, I'm still quite young, like especially last year. Like, I don't know, it's just something you have to look for. Like, as potential as a player, you don't really want to be picking up players who are like 20 or like 22. It's maybe a bit too old, and like maybe they're past their their prime. But like, if you pick up these young players who you can see have a lot of potential, who have like history of doing really well. And I mean, Jupiter was on TNT's kind of on his team last season in Asia, because he was on like the academy team of OG and Entus. So like TNT obviously like knew him, and yeah, it just started, and we started talking to him, and he's just such a good player.
Let's go ahead and take a look at his games against Egor. We'll jump into the first of the two 1v1 games, and Jupiter winning Graveyard against this really interesting, this really different. I guess we've lost game audio somehow. I thought the game audio was in there. I don't know where that went. Oh, that's because I didn't press unmute. There we go. There's the game audio. We have some time here. Really weird hog deck from Egor. Have you seen this deck before?
No, I think it's not a bad deck. Obviously, like, Egor's trying to not get sniped. Like, we've never seen it before, but it's kind of in Egor's like general deck pool, as in like style, like it's Cycle, Hog Rider, which is kind of typical for him.
I mean, yeah, he definitely plays cycle decks. Andrew and I were really confused about the wait until double for Egor. Obviously, for Jupiter, double for Graveyard is phenomenal. But Igor's playing this quick cycle hog deck. We guessed that maybe he was trying to wait for Jupiter to go first when double hit and get a tower so low that he could steal the game before it got into triple elixir. Is that your thought here?
Yeah. I think the fact is that Egor, his deck is not actually too cycle, because he has the Lumberjack, the Ice Golem, the Log, the Fireball, Archers, and like Musk. It's not too cycle where he can like cycle cards like Ice Golem. Like, if he cycles the Ice Golem, what is he like doing next? Or Log? Like, he's not got the best starting hand here either, and like, it's not like too much of a cycle deck where I expect him to start in single. And he's just like, it's one of those where he's waiting like for Jupiter to play, and he can't make a play himself. It's really like awkward for him.
So you think part of this was just that if Jupiter played something different, had played in single, that he would have done something different, but instead he felt like he had to sit back because of his starting hand, and because of, I mean, I guess mainly starting hand is the big issue for you here?
Yeah, like, if he had Archers in starting hand, he just splits Archers in the bag like no problem, probably, right? So yeah, also maybe it was partly due to like what they thought Jupiter was playing, which I think was maybe Balloon, Lava, or 3M, which is probably a better matchup for Egor and Double Elixir. So that's probably part of the reason why he was waiting as well.
So it seemed to us, I mean, first of all, even though Egor loses here, and this is true for both games, it felt like Igor's micro was phenomenal. You know, if you have any things that you think need to be pointed out, good or bad, feel free.
Hmm.
but it felt like the arrows, because the archers were basically unavailable for defense on Graven, I felt like the arrows kind of made this really brutal for Egor.
Yeah, I mean, Igor is one of those players who he's kind of got a small deck pool. So if you like prepare enough and like long enough, you can actually prepare like a good deck versus all his general deck pool. And we spent like a week or something brainstorming decks for Igor and like preparing for him. And it's usually like in this situation, it's usually a team effort, and TNT helps a lot with Jupiter like preparing decks. They're also living like a house at the moment in Korea together, so it's definitely like helping Jupiter prepare a lot. And in terms of the deck selections, there's a lot of time from like Sean and all the players into the deck selection, which is why I think we're getting so many good matchups.
Yeah, why this deck against against Egor?
Um, Graveyard in general is good versus Cycle player, but in some matchups it's not the best. But when you put a Giant into it, it favors like against most of Ego's decks like Balloon, Raw Hogs. Like you have a counter versus all of them, it just generally just goes up against his deck pool well. And like the Mortar, you have like multiple small spells and RG, like Giant Grave is great versus RG. If you think about it, this is like the perfect deck for Ego.
Yeah, I mean this is also just absolutely brutal. I mean Igor's doing pretty well. He has the lead up until this point.
Mhm.
Arrows, unfortunately for him, take the archers out of the equation. But were you surprised that Egor kept this one this close?
No, to be honest, I'm not surprised. I know it's gonna be a close game because even though it's a kind of good match for us, Ego is a great player, and that he can sometimes outcycle with the archers on the arrows. But again, it's not like that much of a cycle deck that we would have probably liked to have seen from him. That whereas he can like outcycle with the archers, but yeah, it's a bit weird
Let's talk
the
about
deck.
let's talk about this sequence here because he gets the musketeer down against Jupiter's Night Witch, protects with the ice golem. Of course, the ice golem does take a stab from the Night Witch here, and this was an interesting kind of creative move. He knew he wanted to protect the musketeer a little bit longer.
Mhm.
Do you think that the hog was an overcommittal here on protecting the musketeer?
Yeah, the hog was definitely like a mistake. Like Jupiter probably didn't need the cage. Maybe like kind of a support Jupe and just counter push there. It was horrible, like into the push. I know he's trying to protect his Musk, but like probably shouldn't have played the Musk that high to start off with.
This was obviously a really great deck pick, and you guys prepped this one for Igor specifically.
Mhm.
In the hands of these two players, matchup wise, I mean, this is obviously good for Jupiter. How far of an advantage would you say with this you'd give him with these two decks?
Mm, just this matchup, I would say is probably 60-40. Like Igor could have won if it was against like a worse player. Like so, like in the end, like Jupiter played better still and still won. Like I don't think Jupiter made a mistake, but Igor, you could have argued he made like a couple of mistakes, even though it was a hard matchup. You can always play better usually.
Is there any moment from Jupiter's play that you were really impressed by in this game, or was this all just like pretty cookie cutter, clean play, but nothing really stood out to you?
Um, I think his like patience and his every time he graveyard right, he got good damage, and it was never like Igor could like archers and he had no licks to arrows it. He played it pretty perfectly, and I think in my opinion, Igor should have gone opposite lane.
Mm.
Like playing same lane is just it's never good, right? It's just pushing into him all the time. And like say he giant graveyards or something at the bridge, he's gonna have no elixir, hog over lane. It's like and that's what I've seen 2.6 players do. And maybe it's something like similar, like when you overcommit, which Jupiter, if you look in a lot of situations, he doesn't have much elixir. If he plays like a hog over lane, the hog he can't get caged down in time, and the hog gets 3 or 4 hits.
And look at this snowball just speeding up the death of those archers a little bit, making some
Hmm.
more room for all this to come through. And yeah, this was the not quite the end, but the beginning of the end. And a GG, well played. And now you guys are at match point. So when you're at match point, this situation, you know that you have at least two. You could lose this set and still have you could still lose 4 games and win this match overall, right? Between 1v1 and King of the Hill. Decision making process for JupiterKing here with deck choice. What are you guys talking about? What are you guys trying to think about when you're up 1 game with one to give against Egor in this position?
I think in this situation, you just try and snipe Igor's comfort decks, which is Mortar, maybe some Raw Hogs and like Balloon, like RG, which he ended up playing. Like so, I think you just like he's gonna play comfort, right? If he's one game down and it's match point for you. So that's usually like the mind games you play.
Time to go for something aggressive, a little snipey against his deck pool. And here we go.
Mm.
And this is interesting because this ended up being a near mirror match. The difference being, I believe, the Ice Spirit for Egor and the Prince for Jupiter. I could be wrong. Let me double check on the exact decks here.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I'll bring up the decks just to make sure that's the exact difference. Hold on. And so it is. Hold on, I'll bring in that one. When you guys saw the first couple of cards up until the Mega Minion, were you thinking that this might be Icepo when you first saw the first couple?
Mm. When we saw the Ice Spirit, which is not very common, and the Skellies, we're thinking 2.9.
Okay.
As soon as we saw the Ice Quiz, I called out to Azilys Expo, and he was like, "No, it's RG," and I was like, "Yeah, you're probably right. It's probably RG."
Yeah, with the Skellies, yeah. So here we go. At this point, when Mega Minion came out, that's when I said RG. It took me one card longer. So yeah, the difference here is Ice Spirit for Egor and Prince for Jupiter. Why'd you guys go with the Prince versus what they went with for the Ice Spirit?
Prince is just a very well-rounded card in this meta, right? It obviously got a buff. It's probably one of the most common cards in this meta, and it's good for pressure, right? If you don't have RG in cycle and they try and build a beatdown push or something, it's just good in general. Like to put behind the RG, like Jupiter did many times in this game, or to kill his RG, or like if he had a giant or hog, it's a very good DPS card. If you have the Ice Spirit, you kind of lack that DPS you might need in some situations.
And what do you think matchup-wise between these two? Obviously, Jupiter came out and won this one in the end. Egor gets around faster. That's a big factor here with the 1 elixir card versus the 5 elixir card.
I think this is like a pretty even matchup, but with like a slight advantage for Egor because he has the fastest cycle whiz and the Ice Spirits, like clutch on Skellies, on the RG on defense, and the Prince, if Egor plays it well, it can't really get much value because on offense it just gets stuck behind the RG and the Ice Spirits splashes it, you log, and then suddenly it's like dead. But on defense, it does get value sometimes.
So here we go, cycling some fireballs early is Jupiter, and talking about this matchup. Once you realize it's going to be such a defensive battle, how important is getting those fireball values early in the game?
Yeah, it's definitely like really important to wherever you see fireball value, take it, but also be careful because you leave the Ice Wizard alive, and if they can like put an RG in front or something, you don't have like another 2 elixir or something to kill the Ice Wizard, you could be in trouble.
So NATO, pretty easy. And I thought this was absolutely brilliant. I want to slow this down. This play, this is what I was talking about, Egor's micro. This is the play I thought that was the most impressive for me on the day. Obviously Jupiter goes on to win this one, but check this one out. And I wanted sort of your thoughts on this timing because you see the Prince get across and look at the placement of the Ice Spirit, right? So many players would play that Ice Spirit much closer to the Prince, at least 1 tile, if not 2 tiles closer to the Prince. He plays it further away than the Ice Wiz. The Ice Spirit jumps in time, and he gets the Skellies down. I mean, I thought this was brilliant. Boof, taking a look at that, to you this is like pretty run of the mill standard stuff.
For me, it's not standard. It might be a bit risky if he knows the interaction for sure, but like you can just put an Ice Spirit and then like a Skellies on the Prince and it's fine, right? The Ice Wizard stays alive and it's kind of less risky. That I don't know. He was like a literal millisecond from killing the Ice Wizard. You could say it's micro, but like maybe it's an unnecessary risk, or it's good micro. Like you could look at it either way. For me, I like to the way I play it is like I like to play as least like risky as possible. So I definitely wouldn't have done that.
You're a little more risk averse, and here we go. I think this is a big moment. The tornado doesn't catch the Prince on this one for Egor, and it felt like this was a big shifting moment because he's forced him to spend a lot more. The Prince doesn't get on tower, but it does force him to throw out a little bit extra. And at this point, and I think that you can just barely see it at this point with the reset. The elixir. I'm sorry for people watching on YouTube and for people watching on Trovo, the elixir bar isn't quite in frame, but you can see that Jupiter is now about an elixir and a half, would be 2 elixir ahead of Egor at this stage. Um,
Yeah, I definitely remember this from the game. After the Mega Minute, I knew he had like a 5 licks LE, so he can put the Ice Wizard, and yeah, it was definitely a bad mistake from Egor.
so NATO doesn't get the Prince back, so forced to spend the extra on the skeletons. And now we're pretty deep into the game. We got a minute 45 left. Um, what at this stage is the key? I mean, it's right now. Egor has both lanes available and a slight lead. Obviously, Jupiter's trying to do his best to get ahead. Um, what do you think is the key to trying to win this one at this moment?
I think in this situation, Egor's possibly a little bit tilted from missing the fireball because I don't think he should be playing offensively like this. Because against Jupiter when he's like ahead on Elixir, which he is ahead on Elixir for the whole of the sequence for like the next minute, you don't want to be playing first. You just want to be defending, right? Waiting for him to overcommit and just be a bit more patient. But it seemed like to me as soon as he got Argene's cycle, he was just playing a little bridge every time. And it just happened like it was good timing. It was the same as Jupiter's, but Jupiter always had like a troop there, like an Ice Wizard or like a Mega Minion as well. So yeah, maybe a bit aggressive.
A little bit aggressive. So there's some fireball value on the left-hand side for JupiterKing. RG goes in hard on the right-hand side. And the RG gets a couple of nice shots. I mean, 2 shots. That's not insignificant with a minute 20 left.
Yeah, the problem is like they're both getting the same amount of damage really if they're both playing this RG at the same time and defending with the exact same cards and have the exact same elixir like and with Jupiter being ahead, like these trades are perfectly fine for him to make.
Yeah, and you see no Ice Wiz for Ice Wiz not in cycle. It's dead from the fireball. The fireball, and look at that! Look at this fireball. Actually, this is brilliant. I think this is the moment that changes the entire game. You can see healthy Ice Wiz comes down for Egor into the left-hand lane, half health Ice Wiz for Jupiter, and look at this fireball. Hits the Ice Wiz, the defensive Ice Wiz from Egor, knocks it in range so that his can finish it off, and now there's nothing to slow down the RG on the opposite side. So it feels to me like that fireball, first of all, really heads up play, nice placement to knock the Ice Wiz forward, but it feels like that fireball is the one that ended the game here and won it for Jupiter in those final moments.
Yeah, you're definitely right there. It's like he played it like exact moment, so Ego would have like as little time as possible to react to like defend it. And as soon as that happens, he's already cycled back to an ice with a defense, right? So playing on offense is good because it slows obviously the troops he's trying to defend with, and like it can kill skellies. And then Ego like plays the RG when he's down on Elixir again. So like it just ends up being an easy defense for Jupiter, and Ego just takes even more damage.
Yeah, this, I mean, and Igor's obviously a phenomenal player with what he did last week, what he did at Worlds. So this is a pretty big win for Jupiter. You have a young player on your team like this. A little extra. I love that with the NATO damage. Go ahead and logs it out. GG, well played. You have a young player like this. You've been in this position. You've been a young player, kind of trying to really impress the big stars around you and make a name as you're starting out in CRL. What does this do for a guy like Jupiter? Is he already just supremely confident coming in? And what do wins like this do when you're trying to build up a player for your program?
It's definitely very helpful because obviously wins are like the most helpful thing to build confidence, and like it's a shame at the same time we're not getting to play TNT because TNT is obviously one of the best players in Asia now coming to West. It's a shame we're not being able to play him, but it's great like building up Jupiter. Main thing we're focusing on is like worlds, so it's more long term. So we just want to build up Jupiter as much as possible and not like burn him out like before worlds or even next split. And it's just like a long term thing we're thinking of here, like with the whole team. Like we knew, like I know No Tail wasn't like the best performance from me personally, but like in my mind it was just like a stepping stone to like the next CRL, and eventually like worlds is just what we're focusing on.
Yeah, I mean it's certainly one of those things you have to have in your vision for sure. How do you guys feel? So I mean, you're 2-0 right now. You're probably going to be going into the playoffs. It's going to be very difficult to have you guys be taken out, and you have a good shot also at taking that first seed potentially. You'll be in a bit of a fight for that, obviously, with Space Station. So that's going to be interesting when the two of you guys meet. How do you feel about you guys in the BO5 format? I mean, at that point, 3 1v1s. Obviously, you can get TNT mixed in there as well. Do you feel like that format is going to be a boost to you guys, like an advantage, a disadvantage, the same, versus the best of 3 format?
Yeah, for sure. We've been saying like the regular season format's definitely like the weakest format, and I know like us and Space Station especially are gonna like really have much stronger teams when it goes to the best of five format. I know other teams that don't have as much depth as us, like they're not gonna be able to field like three like good 1v1 sets really. So like in my opinion, like we probably have one of the best, if not the best, playoff format roster.
Yeah, I mean, you guys certainly have a pretty solid one. And that's the other thing too is I'd hate to go through any combination of three head-to-head players between you and Azilys, TNT, and Jupiter. Well, dude, thank you. This has been phenomenal. Really love having your insight on some of these games, some of these matchups. People, if they want to find you, I know that on Twitter it's at Boeufmac, Boeufmac. It's I know people struggle with that one. Boeufmac. I never asked you this. Boeufmac. What is that? Why? I've actually never asked you this question.
It's actually like it's something my brother used to call me. The like he called me Buff, and like the Mac is kind of like from my name, so it's just like that put together. But yeah, it's just something my brother used to call me, and I just like kept it as like a gamer tag, I guess, and kept
Sure.
it.
What's it like having? I guess a question people. I don't know if people in the chat are asking this, but I'll ask this one. Obviously, Tom Brawl Stars, your twin brother,
hmm
who's phenomenal. I mean, what's the house like having two world class mobile esports competitors under the same roof? Going back and forth, Brawl Stars. I mean, do you guys push each other? Are you guys completely separate in terms of your preparation? Obviously, you two are very close. You've grown up in the same house for a long time. You look very similar. Like what's the environment like at home with the two of you both competing at this high level?
Yeah, it's definitely like trying to like push each other to like exercise and be healthier, like eat healthier. It's the main thing like we push for each other, but like mainly we don't see each other much because we're both like preparing. We don't like obviously help each other because I know nothing about boosters and he knows nothing about Clash Royale, so it doesn't make sense. But like outside of that, like it's good because like Tribe obviously supporting us a lot, like having both of us in the same house, they're sending us like a lot of stuff. They send like family like jerseys and stuff, so they're definitely very supportive.
That's pretty rad. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. Again, that's at Boeufmac. I'll put that in the show notes. Maybe I'll throw it on the screen as well. And of course, you're streaming. Where are you streaming when you are?
Twitch,
Twitch.tv/.
Boeufmac.
Oh, there you go. Nice and easy. Twitch.tv/Boeufmac. Excellent. Thank you very much, man. Really appreciate it. For those of you watching this video
Mhm.
on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe right up here somewhere. Yeah, right around this place for the subscribing. The next video will be right around here-ish. I'm Rich Slayton. I will see you next time, and I'll see you every Saturday, 10 a.m. in the West, 1 p.m. in the East for CRL. Peace.